Struan Stevenson, Conservative MEP for Scotland. There are proposals which are going through the motions here in the European Parliament to look at deep sea fishing, and it is still at a kind of mid to early stage. But as things stand at the moment, what would the impact be of these proposals on the deep sea fishing industry in Scotland?
Well, there would be a huge impact. We have some small harbours, small ports in the West Highlands, which rely entirely on the deep water fishery. I mean, some of them with 6 vessels that target only the deep water fishery. But we're not talking about the species that seems to be exciting public attention, like the very fragile deep water species that can live to be 100 years old and only mature when they're 25. So if you catch them before then, they never have a chance to breed and you're in danger of wiping them out. Species like orange ruffy, which we have banned effectively from being fished anyway, round-nosed grenadier, black scabbard fish, which the Scottish fleet aren't interested in. We are fishing at round about 900 metres on the mid-slope of the continental shelf for species like monkfish, hake, saithe, megrim. All of that is, an important fishery for Scotland. And here we have the Greens and their friends in the NGO community pushing for a one-size-fits-all ban on deep water fishery over the whole of Europe. Now, the reform of the common fisheries policy that we've worked for the last 4 years to implement was all to do away with one-size-fits-all approaches, which just never work. And here we are going down this road again. I mean, to tell fishermen in Scotland that they've got to use longlines to fish at 900 metres for monkfish, it's just completely barmy.
I mean, the reality, as you were telling the committee today, I think, is that longlines, for example, would just not be viable and not practical and not possible to use for these kind of fishermen. Is that the case? Just explain what the problems are that longlines would anyway cause.
Well, I mean, for a start, it's impractical to be talking about a longline fishing down to 900 metres or even deeper. But secondly, longlines themselves do a lot of damage to fragile species like the rare species of deep water sharks, which go for the baited hooks on longlines, and you kill a lot of sharks that way. Also, as you're casting your long line with hundreds of baited hooks, birds dive down, grab the hook and get drowned. They get trapped on the hook and get pulled under the surface of the water and killed. This is, big impact stuff on bird life, on rare species of sharks. So it's not an entirely squeaky clean approach for the Commission and the Green Lobby to be recommending in the first place. Look, we are all very keen to protect vulnerable marine ecosystems on the seabed, corals and all the other sponges and vulnerable ecosystems. But our fishing vessels avoid these areas like the plague. They don't want their nets in deep water snagging on underwater corals. And they fish always on muddy flats, on sandy or gravelly bottoms. So they're not doing the damage that this whole proposal seems to be directed at wiping out. So really we have to have some common sense, and there's a lot of debate going on about this. I hope common sense will prevail.
As things stand, is there a risk then that the fishermen that do target the megrim, for example, that are at this level, will find that their industry is put at threat, given that presumably they have vessels that particularly target fish at this kind of depth that they can't easily kind of convert?
Yeah, well, they're being told that if we in Europe introduce a blanket ban on deep water fishing, and there are some proposals that all deep water fishing below 400 metres be completely banned over the whole of Europe. I mean, that would have a devastating impact. It would literally close down some of our small West Highland communities.
I mean, that's presumably why MEPs like yourself are there in the committee to have these conversations about, for example, unintended consequences that EU law can have. Are you convinced that you can win the argument? Because there was a lot of discussion on both sides. Not everyone was convinced of your point of view in the committee.
Well, I think we'll win the argument in committee because that's where the expertise is. But we were being threatened this morning that the NGOs are putting huge efforts into persuading the wider MEP community so that when the vote is taken in Strasbourg in front of more than 700 MEPs, we could lose the vote there. Even on the train going from Brussels to Strasbourg last Monday, when there's hundreds of MEPs on the train, the NGOs were going round handing out leaflets on this issue to everybody on the train. They're pumping money into this from around the world. Some of the big global NGOs want to ban deep water trawling. Believe me, this is thin end of the wedge. If they win this one, they will then turn to banning shallow water trawling, and that will be the end of the prawn industry in Scotland as well. So beware.
You flagged up in the committee discussions about what you called Article 9. So the detail is the devil's in the detail, really. Are you convinced that as this stands, it would absolutely ban this kind of fishing for the Scottish industry because of this article that's written in there?
Well, the rapporteur on this, who is from Greece and is very, very green, he's just resigned from the Socialist group, and I think he's about to join the Greens. He is absolutely determined that he wants this total ban. He is introducing compromise amendments to try to meet our needs. But the one article that you mentioned, Article 9, he won't compromise. And Article 9, ridiculously, says that after we introduce this amended proposal, based on all these compromise deals, 2 years later, the Commission will withdraw all licences for deep water fishing, and that effectively will be the end of all deep water fishing in Europe. So what is the point in us doing all this work, looking at compromises, if Article 9 remains, and 2 years after we implement this new law, the whole thing is banned? I mean, it's crazy. We have to get rid of Article 9. So I'm going to recommend the nuclear option, where we vote against Article 9. We delete it from the text altogether.
Just finally, the timetable, because as I mentioned at the beginning, this is at a kind of midway point. When do you think this will be coming to a committee vote, which you can, by which point you can hopefully, you hope to win the argument, and then when can we see this, moving the way forward to becoming European law?
I think this is all going to be concluded in committee and in plenary this year, probably as soon as November. So I think we're going to see a conclusion to this before Christmas. And, this is very dangerous territory we're on. We have to win this argument. I had a leading NGO representative telling me, if you win this, we will mobilize the public to stop buying your fish in all the supermarkets. These are the kind of threats and blackmail that are being bandied around, and it's completely unacceptable. We work on the basis of scientific opinion and scientific evidence in the committee. The Fisheries Committee are supposed to be experts. The scientists are telling us that the deep water stocks in any case are recovering. They are reaching back to the sustainable levels. And they say it would be absurd to implement a ban under a certain level on all deep water fishing. So we have to listen to the scientists and not get overexcited by what the Green Lobby are telling us.